Hey crew, it's Ben, and I'm back with another Bible study. Today we are going to be wrapping up Exodus, so there may be jump cuts in this so that I can take a break, walk around, and stretch my voice a bit. We're going to dive into Exodus 36, and we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. There's only a few chapters left. There is only basic reading. Like, we're not really diving into anything that's left. I told y'all I was going to read everything, and I'm going to read everything. So we're going to go through the boring parts too. I will try to make it a little bit entertaining with the tone of my voice. That being said, I hold unconventional beliefs. There will be points where I stop and talk about things, probably, and it may upset you if you hold conventional beliefs. If you are somebody that gets your feelings hurt really easily, you probably don't want to be here. And if you are unfamiliar with what I am doing in the Bible, and I am doing a literal reading, but where it's taking me is not where most people go. So you should start at the top with the Bible study. I would start in Genesis because the Bible study starts in a whole different place. Now, into Exodus 36 because we finished up in Exodus 35. Exodus 35 just was, y'all leave, here's the craftsman. This really should have been part of 36. And so, Exodus 36, the people bring more than enough. So, Bezalel, Oholiab, and every skilled person are to carry out everything commanded by the Lord, who has given them skill and ability to know how to perform all the works of constructing the sanctuary. And then Moses summoned Bezalel, Oholiab, and every skilled person. The names get better as we go along. And every skilled person from whom the Lord had gifted. Everyone whose heart stirred him to come to do the work. They received from Moses all the contributions that the Israelites had brought to carry out the service of constructing the sanctuary. Meanwhile, the people continued to bring freewill offerings morning and after morning, so that all the skilled craftsmen who were doing all the work in the sanctuary left their work and said to Moses, "The people are bringing more than enough for doing the work the Lord has commanded us to do." After Moses had given an order, they sent a proclamation throughout the camp. No man or woman should make anything else as an offering for the sanctuary. And so the people were restrained from bringing more, since they already had was more than enough to perform all the work. This screams to me, we will see a lot in Leviticus. This screams to me of one of those, the people brought it to him, like, they're continuing to ask for this stuff, but I think we have enough, and before it gets out of hand and people lose their minds, you need to clamp down on this. So Moses went and gave that order. I'm not knocking it. I have a very literal reading, and I try to put myself into their place, right? And so if they were freely giving of their stuff, and it was for a specific purpose, and there was enough, then that they definitely should stop. But I think maybe there was a little bit more to that just because of the nature of Moses. So they stopped that. And then the 10 curtains for the tabernacle. All the skilled craftsmen among the workmen made the 10 curtains for the tabernacle. They were made of finely spun linen, as well as blue, purple, and scarlet yarn, with cherubim skillfully worked into them. Each curtain was 28 cubits long and 4 cubits wide. All the curtains were the same size. And he joined 5 of the curtains together, and the other 5 he joined as well. He made loops of blue material on the edge of the end curtain in the first set, and also on the end curtain in the second set. He made 50 loops on one curtain and 50 loops on the end curtain of the second set, so that the loops lined up opposite one another. He also made 50 gold clasps to join the curtains together, so that the tabernacle was a unit. Again, this is very technical details. If you're hanging in there, I appreciate you. Not many people's going to watch this episode. Like, this is just wrap up Exodus. It's a lot of details. It's a lot of reading, and it really is boring. So I have to do it though. The 11 curtains of goat hair. He then made curtains of goat hair for the tent over the tabernacle. 11 curtains in all. Each of the 11 curtains was made of the same size, 30 cubits long and 4 wide. We talked about the dimensions and all of that prior. We don't really need to get into that. It's big. He joined 5 of the curtains into one set and 6 into another, and he made 50 loops along the edge of the end curtain of the first set, 50 loops along the edge of the corresponding curtain in the second set. He also made 50 bronze clasps to join the tent together as a unit. Additionally, he made for the tent a covering of ram skins dyed red, and over that a covering of fine leather. Next, he constructed upright frames of acacia wood for the tabernacle. Each frame was 10 cubits long and a cubit and a half wide. 2 tenons were connected to each other for the frame, and he made all the frames in the tabernacle the same way. I think the tenons were the conductive part. Remember, when it's creating the static electricity from rubbing together, it's sending the current to the ark. That's my belief. For the second side of the tabernacle on the north side, he made 20 frames and 40 silver bases, 2 bases under each frame. He made 6 frames for the rear of the tabernacle, the west side, and 2 frames for the 2 back corners of the tabernacle, coupled together from bottoms to top and fitted into a single ring. He made both corners in this way. So there were 8 frames and 16 silver bases, 2 under each frame. He also made 5 crossbars of acacia wood for the frames and on one side of the tabernacle, 5 for those on the other side and 5 for those on the rear side of the tabernacle to the west. He made the central crossbar to run through the center of the frames from one end to the other, and he overlaid the frames with gold and made gold rings to all the crossbars, and he also overlaid the crossbars with gold. Organic material, inorganic material, highly conductive. I went over the major part of that in another video. I'm not diving into it here. It is an electricity creation device, and there is a channeling that happens. We will see that in Leviticus. Things get wild in Leviticus. You think it's been wild so far? Things get wild in Leviticus. And so, next, he made the veil of purple, blue, and scarlet yarn, and finely spun linen, with cherubim skillfully worked into it. He also made 4 posts of acacia wood for it and overlaid them with gold, along with gold hooks, and he cast 4 silver bases for the posts. And for the entrance to the tent, he made a curtain embroidered with blue, purple, and scarlet yarn, and finely spun linen, together with 5 posts and their hooks. He overlaid the top of the post and their bands with gold, and their 5 bases were bronze. We've talked about all of that before. Bezalel went on to construct the ark of acacia wood, 2.5 cubits long and a cubit and a half wide, and a cubit and a half high. He overlaid it with pure gold, both inside and out, and made a gold molding around it. And he cast 4 gold rings for its 4 feet, 2 rings on one side and 2 on the other. Then he made poles of acacia wood and overlaid them with gold. He inserted the poles into the rings on the sides of the ark in order to carry it. He constructed the mercy seat of pure gold, 2.5 cubits long and a cubit and a half wide. He made 2 cherubim of hammered gold at the ends of the mercy seat, 1 cherubim on one end and 1 on the other, all made from 1 piece of gold. And the cherubim had wings that spread upward, overshadowing the mercy seat. The cherubim faced each other, looking towards the mercy seat. He also made the table of acacia wood, 2 cubits long, a cubit wide, and a cubit and a half high. He overlaid it with pure gold and made a gold molding around it. And he made a rim around it a handbreadth wide and put gold moldings on the rim. He cast 4 gold rings for the table and fastened them to the 4 corners at its 4 legs. The rings were placed to the rim to serve as holders for the poles used to carry the table. He made the poles of acacia wood for carrying the table and overlaid them with gold. He also made the utensils for the table out of pure gold, its plates and dishes, as well as its bowls and pitchers for pouring drink offerings. Then he made the lampstand out of pure hammered gold, all in one piece, its base and shafts, its cups, its buds and petals. 6 branches extended from the side, 3 on one side, 3 on the other, and the 3 cups were shaped like almond blossoms in the first branch, each with buds and petals, 3 on the next branch, and the same for all 6 branches that extended up from the lampstand. And on the lampstand were 4 cups shaped like almond blossoms, with buds and petals. A bud was placed under the first pair of branches and extended from the lampstand. A bud was under the second pair, and a bud under the third pair. The buds and branches were all of one piece with the lampstand, hammered out of pure gold. He also made its 7 lamps, its wick trimmers, and trays of pure gold. He made the lampstand and all of its utensils from a talent of pure gold. I'm not sure that we dived into that when we went through. For the lampstand comes back a lot of times throughout the Bible. And so this is the physical description of the lampstand. It is a candelabra, right? 7 branches, 1 in the middle, 6 on the sides, holds 7 candles. They are shaped to resemble the pineal gland, right? The almond. And The almond blossoms are on the end, but it has the buds and the petals, right? So it is both the pineal gland and the exponential geometric growth that ensues therefrom. The lampstand is very important going forward, but we will dig more into that later in other lessons. This is really not the place for, like, this is in the middle of something, so it'll get lost. He also made his 7 lamps, wick trimmers, and trays of pure gold. He made the lampstand and all of its utensils from a talent of pure gold. He made the altar of incense out of acacia wood. It was square, a cubit long, a cubit wide, and 2 cubits high. Its horns were of 1 piece, and he overlaid the pure gold with pure gold, the top and all the sides of the horns, and the horns. Then he made a molding of gold around it. He made 2 gold rings below the molding on opposite sides to hold the poles used to carry it. And he made the poles of acacia wood and overlaid them with gold. He also made the sacred anointing oil and the pure fragrant incense of the work of a perfumer. All right, the bronze altar. We're into the Exodus 38 now. Bezalel constructed the altar of burnt offering from acacia wood. It was square, 5 cubits long, 5 cubits wide, and 3 cubits high. He made a horn at each of its 4 corners, so that the horns and altar were of 1 piece, and he overlaid the altar with bronze. He made all the altar's utensils of bronze, its pots, shovels, sprinkling bowls, beads, forks, and fire pans. He made a grate of bronze mesh for the altar under its ledge, halfway up from the bottom. This is a big barbecue pit, y'all. At the 4 corners of the bronze grate, he cast 4 rings as holders for the poles, and he made the poles of acacia wood and overlaid them with bronze. Then he inserted the poles into the rings on the sides of the altar for carrying it. He made the altar with boards so that it was hollow. Next he made the bronze basin with its stands from the mirrors of the women who served at the entrance to the tent of meeting. The bronze basin and the mirrors, I'm not sure that we got into that either. I don't think they actually talked about the mirrors before, but this has to be piecemeal, right? You can't make a solid mirror out of pieces of mirror. They never line up correctly. You can get them really close, but they're not exact, right? So this is probably a piecemeal type of thing around the basin. That's just me sticking something in there that seems to be descriptive that I don't think we hit on before. Then he constructed the courtyard. The south of the courtyard was 100 cubits long and had curtains of finely spun linen, with 20 posts and 20 bronze bases, and with silver hooks and bands on the posts. The north side was also 100 cubits long, with 20 posts and 20 bronze bases. The hooks and bands of the posts were silver. The west side was 50 cubits long and had curtains, with 10 posts and 10 bases. The hooks and bands of the posts were silver, and on the east side, towards the sunrise, was also 50 cubits long. The curtains on one side of the entrance were 15 cubits long, with 3 posts and 3 bases, and the curtains on the other side were also 15 cubits long, with 3 posts and 3 bases as well. All the curtains on the courtyard were made of finely spun linen. The bases for the posts were bronze, the hooks and bands were silver, and the plating for the top of the posts were silver. So all the posts of the courtyard were banded with silver. So we have gold inside the tent. The only silver is the talons, which connect them together with the bronze and the silver and the gold, creating that current. And then we have silver in the courtyard, and the silver is connecting as well. It is also for the discharge and the conductivity of the priest in their duties, to evidence the favor of the Lord. They used this. And the curtain for the entrance to the courtyard was embroidered with blue, purple, and scarlet yarn and finely spun linen. It was 20 cubits long, and like the curtains of the courtyard, 5 cubits high, with 4 posts and 4 bronze bases. Their hooks were silver, as well as the bands and the plating of their tops. All the tent pegs for the tabernacle and for the surrounding courtyard were bronze. This is the inventory for the tabernacle of the testimony as recorded at Moses' command by the Levites under the direction of Ithamar, son of Aaron the priest. Bezalel, son of Uri, the son of Hur, the tribe of Judah, made everything that the Lord had commanded Moses. With him was Oholiab, son of Ahisamach, in the tribe of Dan, an engraver, designer, and embroiderer in blue, purple, and scarlet yarn and fine linen. All the gold from the wave offering used for the work on the sanctuary totaled 29 talents and 730 shekels, according to the sanctuary shekel. The silver from those numbered among the congregation totaled 100 talents and 1,775 shekels, according to the sanctuary shekel. A beka per person, that is, half a shekel, according to the sanctuary shekel, from everyone 20 years of age or older who had crossed over to be numbered, a total number of 603,550 men. This is a confirmation from earlier, right? When we were talking about numbers and the actual size of this, right? People do not conceptualize 3 to 6 million people in the desert. When they think of the story of Moses, they are thinking of 12 tribes with like a few people, maybe 100 per tribe. Like that's what you think of. Like you're really not thinking about the fact that there are 603,550 men. And if these are 20 years and older, right? So these are men of age, and if they are of age, they are required to be married. So unless there is death or something of that nature, or there's some reason to not be married, it was expected of men to be married. And so we're looking at 1.2 million people off the top. You add in kids, we get to 3 to 6. That is a lot of people to have in the desert. And these people want to know where their jewelry is being spent. That's what this is. This is us accounting for the jewelry. We talked earlier about where the inspiration for this tabernacle and ark and all that came from. We talked about how they got the stuff from the people, right? They say that it is a free, willing offering, and I can't deny that that is absolutely a possibility, because if I thought God was calling me to give away everything I had, I would. But I also know that history is written by the victors, and whoever has the history wants to put their spin on it. And therefore, if you're putting together an amalgamation of stories, you are going to put your spin on it. And his spin is that it was a freely given thing, even though we've seen a command not to wear it, and we've seen where it disappeared through the fire. We're not going to dive back into that. I think this is the people were holding them to account, so this is added in so that it is held to account where the stuff went. Perfectly reasonable assumption to make, I feel. If I'm wrong, y'all let me know down below. Where were we at? 603,550 men. 100 talents of silver were used to cast the bases of the sanctuary and bases of the veil. 100 bases from the 100 talents, 1 talent per base. With the 1,775 shekels of silver, he made the hooks for the posts, overlaid their tops, and supplied bands for them. The bronze from the wave offering totaled 70 talents and 2,400 shekels. He used it to make the bases for the entrance to the tent of meeting, the bronze altar, and its bronze grating, all the utensils for the altar, the bases for the surrounding courtyard and its gate, and all the tent pegs for the tabernacle and its surrounding courtyard. All right, we are going to take a quick jump break right here. All right, now back to the last 2 chapters. Exodus 39. From the blue, purple, and scarlet yarn, they made specifically woven garments for ministry in the sanctuary, as well as holy garments for Aaron, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. Bezalel made an ephod of finely spun linen embroidered with gold, and with blue, purple, and scarlet yarn. He hammered out thin sheets of gold and cut threads from them to interweave with the blue, purple, and scarlet yarn and fine linen, the work of a skilled craftsman. They made shoulder pieces for the ephod, which were attached at the 2 corners, them shoulder rivers, so it could be fastened. I've got a whole talk about that in here. The shoulder rivers from all over the place are recorded here as onyx. And a skillfully woven band of the ephod was of one piece with the ephod, of the same workmanship, with gold and purple and blue, with gold, blue, and purple, and scarlet yarn, and with finely spun linen, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. They mounted the onyx stones in gold filigree settings, engraved like a seal with the name of the sons of Israel. Then they fastened them on the shoulder pieces of the ephod as memorial stones for the sons of Israel, as the Lord had commanded Moses. He made the breastpiece with the same workmanship as the ephod, with the gold and blue and purple and scarlet yarn, and with finely spun linen. It was a square when folded over double, a span long and a span wide. And they mounted it on 4 rows of gemstones. It had a row. The first row had a ruby, a topaz, and an emerald. The second row had a turquoise, a sapphire, and a diamond. The third row had a jacinth, an agate, and an amethyst. And the fourth row had a beryl, onyx, and jasper. These stones were mounted in gold filigree settings. We've talked about the stones. The 12 stones corresponding to the names of the son of Israel. Each stone was engraved like a seal with the name of one of the 12 tribes, which also corresponds with the zodiac. And for the breastplates, they made braided chains like cords of pure gold. They also made 2 gold filigree settings and 2 gold rings, and fastened the 2 rings to the 2 corners of the chest breastpiece. And then they fastened the 2 gold chains to the 2 gold rings at the corners of the breastpiece, and they fastened the other ends of the 2 chains to the 2 filigree settings, attaching them to the shoulder pieces of the ephod at the front. They made 2 more gold rings and attached them to the other 2 corners of the breastpiece on the inside edge, next to the ephod. They made 2 additional gold rings and attached them to the bottom of the 2 shoulder pieces of the ephod, on its front, near the seam, just above the woven waistband. And then they tied the rings of the breast pieces to the rings of the ephod with a cord of blue yarn, so that the breast piece was just above the waistband of the ephod and would not swing out from the ephod, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. And then they made the robe of the ephod entirely of blue cloth, the work of a weaver, with an opening in the center like that of a garment, with a collar around the opening so that it would not tear. They made pomegranates of blue, purple, and scarlet yarn, and finely spun linen on the lower hem of the robe. They also made bells of pure gold and attached them around the hem between the pomegranates, so that they could ground, alternating the bells and pomegranates around the lower hem of the robe to be worn for ministry, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. For Aaron and his sons they made tunics of fine linen, the work of a weaver, as well as the turban of fine linen, the ornate headbands and undergarments of finely spun linen, and the sash of finely spun linen, embroidered with blue, purple, and scarlet yarn, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. They also made the plate of the holy crown of pure gold, and they engraved on it like an inscription on a seal, "Holy to the Lord." And they fastened it to a blue cord to mount it on the turban, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. Sorry. And Moses approves the work. So all the work for the tabernacle, the tent of meeting, was completed. The Israelites did just as the Lord had commanded Moses. Then they brought the tabernacle to Moses, the tent with all its furnishings, its clasps, its frames, its crossbars, its posts and bases, the covering of ram skins dyed red, the covering of fine leather, and the veil of covering, the ark of the testimony with its poles and mercy seat, the table with all its utensils, and the bread of the presence, the pure lampstands with its row of lamps and all its utensils, as well as the oil for the light, the gold altar, the anointing oil, the fragrant incense, and the curtain for the entrance to the tent, the bronze altar with its bronze grating, its poles and its utensils, its basin with its stand, the curtains of the courtyard with its posts and bases, the curtain for the gate of the courtyard, its ropes and tent pegs, and all the equipment for the service of the tabernacle, the tent of meeting, and the woven garments for ministering in the sanctuary, both the holy garments for Aaron the priest and the garments for his sons to serve as priests. The Israelites had done all the work just as the Lord had commanded Moses. And Moses inspected all the work and saw that they had accomplished it just as the Lord had commanded. So Moses blessed them. All right, almost there. If you hung in this long, you are a champ. All right, setting up the tabernacle. Then the Lord said to Moses, "On the first day of the month you are to set up a tabernacle, the tent of meeting. Put the ark of the testimony in it and screen off the ark with the veil. Then bring in the table and set out its arrangement. Bring in the lampstands as well and set up the lamps. Place the gold altar of incense in front of the ark of the testimony and hang the curtain at the entrance of the tabernacle. Place the altar of burnt offering in front of the entrance of the tabernacle, the tent of meeting. And place the basin between the tent of meeting and the altar and put water in it. Set up the surrounding courtyard and hang the curtain for the entrance to the courtyard. Take the anointing oil and anoint the tabernacle and everything in it. Consecrate it along with all its furnishings, and it shall be holy. Anoint the altar of burnt offering and all its utensils. Consecrate the altar, and it shall be most holy. Anoint the basin and its stand and consecrate them. We talked about the consecration process. Then bring Aaron and his sons to the entrance of the tent of meeting and wash them with water. You are to clothe Aaron with the holy garments, anoint him, consecrate him, so that he may serve me as priest. Bring his sons forward and clothe them with tunics. Anoint them just as you anointed their father, so that they may serve me as priests. Their anointing will qualify them for a permanent priesthood throughout their generations. Not establishing something here. You're not setting a precedent for something right here. Like everybody else, y'all going to work, but y'all are going to give me a little bit, and I'm going to take care of the priestly duties for you. Me and my family forever. And so Moses did everything just as the Lord had commanded him. So the tabernacle was set up on the first day of the first month of the second year. And when Moses set up the tabernacle, he laid its bases, positioned its frames, inserted its crossbars, and set up its posts. And then he spread the tent over the tabernacle and put up the covering over the tent, just as the Lord had commanded him. Moses took the testimony and placed it in the ark, attaching the poles to the ark, and he set the mercy seat atop the ark. And then he brought the ark into the tabernacle, put up the veil for a screen, and shielded off the ark of the testimony, just as the Lord had commanded him. Moses placed the table in the tent of meeting on the north side of the tabernacle, outside the veil. He arranged the bread on it before the Lord, just as the Lord had commanded him. He also placed the lampstand in the tent of meeting opposite the table on the south side of the tabernacle, and set up the lamps before the Lord, just as the Lord had commanded him. Moses placed the gold altar in the tent of meeting in front of the veil. He burned fragrant incense on it, just as the Lord had commanded him. Then he put up the curtain at the entrance of the tabernacle. He placed the altar of burnt offering near the entrance of the tabernacle, the tent of meeting, and offered it on the burnt offering and the grain offering, just as the Lord had commanded him. He placed the basin between the tent of meeting and the altar, and put water in it for washing. And from it Moses, Aaron, and his sons washed their hands and feet. They washed whenever they entered the tent of meeting or approached the altar, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. They grounded. They made sure they were grounded before they walked into this place. I wonder why. And Moses set up the courtyard around the tabernacle and the altar, and he hung up the curtain for the entrance to the courtyard. So Moses finished the work. Then the cloud covered the tent of meeting, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. Moses was unable to enter the tent of meeting because the cloud had settled on it, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. And whenever the cloud was lifted from above the tabernacle, the Israelites would set out through all the stages of their journey. If the cloud was not lifted, they would not set out until the day it was taken up. For the cloud of the Lord was over the tabernacle by day, and fire was in the cloud by night, and in the sight of all the house of Israel through all their journeys. Okay, so we did it. We made it through. We are finished with Exodus. We will be diving into Leviticus. And things really get wild in Leviticus, y'all. There's a lot of stuff that gets glossed over and skipped over because there's a lot of technicalities. It is just as dry as this wrap-up was in the beginning. And then it starts getting interesting as we get farther along. There are a lot of rules set down, and some of them make sense. We will talk about why they make sense. We will talk about all of that coming up. Hopefully, I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to a very difficult topic. I know that I hold very unconventional beliefs. I hope I didn't offend anybody, but I cannot stay silent and not point out the things that I point out in this book. People take it as this is the all, end, be, and is, and it is not. This is a tool for you to use to find God Himself. God himself can save you. God himself redeems you. And there is no intermediary or blood sacrifice ever required. And so, all that has ever been required was for you to give your willing service to him, to turn your life over to him. Trust me, the yoke is easy. Say something like this. Say, Dear Heavenly Father, I come to you as a sinner. I ask you to forgive my sins. I freely accept the grace that you freely extend to me. Change my life into yours and help me to be the person you designed me to be. And if you said that and you meant that, that is it. That is a wrap. That is all it takes. You find a fellowship. Find people to commune with. Grow your faith. Get to know God. Read the Bible. Read the Eddas. Read all the books. Learn who God really is, because he really does love you. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me. I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. You're perfect, whole, and complete just the way that you are. And this has been Pittstake. Peace.